Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Reap the Harvest Live, your Momentum Monday edition. We're about hour and 10 minutes late today, but that's because, we actually run businesses and stuff. So, but we do not shy away from the challenge to show up and deliver. Matty Matt in the house.
That's right. Well, I have a family in town this weekend, so it's always good to kind of maintain that perspective. I think I made a post this weekend. Time is a currency. You got to treat time as a form of currency, right?
Right. You can't get it back.
It's our most valuable form of currency. It's a commodity that ultimately you want to make sure that you choose wisely, right? And so my brother and his partner were down for the weekend, and then my parents were, and I just wanted to make sure that I got some lunch with them today. But that time I'm never going to get back, so I definitely want to make sure I'm choosing wisely and investing in the people that are obviously super close to me and very important. So that's why I'm running specifically a little late today, because I want to make sure I'm investing in my family, man, my core.
Dude, yeah, I had a slow start this morning too. We had a nice relaxing, as relaxing as it can be with the girls this weekend, hanging out at home and doing the park and all that kind of stuff. And dude, 2 kids, it's a handful. The word relaxing really isn't even the word I should be using. It's like,
no, never.
It's just a different style work day. It's just, I'm not working in my little office. I'm working with them, because kids constantly need to be coached. And that's the tough thing about it. You want to be friendly with your kids and have fun, but at the same time, it's like, unfortunately, you're pretty much a coach, because they've got to figure out this stuff, and then they've got to navigate their own way through the world. So
right.
What kind of fun are we having while they're learning the lessons that they need to learn to slide down the slide on their own, and feed themselves on their own, and open the fruit snacks on their own, and put their shoe back on their own. And it's just like,
on the right foot.
All that stuff takes work. So while it's fun and it's time spent with the family and all of that jazz, I would almost call it more relaxing to do stuff like this than it is to run around with screaming kids. But that's just my personality is different than other people's,
Yeah. No, hey man, I liked where this topic's headed, because it's so important. I had a conversation with my daughter today. Actually, she's home. They had a fever last week, so we got them tested for COVID. They don't have COVID, which is, but they do. They still it's mandatory for the daycares to extend it out for
quarantine,
3 days.
Right?
They have to quarantine for 3 days,
right?
Even though they've been tested and don't have it. But one of the most important things that I think I learned later in life, but I was instilled with like a really competitive personality. I was just competitive with everything, and it was win or lose. But one of the things that I've established later in life, that life's such a team game. You have to count on other people for literally everything. Very rarely are you going to be in like a sport like golf. I was watching the U.S. Last couple holes of the U.S. Open yesterday. I don't know if ever anyone's into golf that's listening to him, but Bryson DeChambeau, the guy's an absolute monster. But he still has to, he has a caddy, right? That's going to tell him the yardage, that knows the course, and kind of to know where to, when to do a layup, when to go at the pin, when he needs to go at the pin, be a little bit more aggressive. Obviously, he's up by 6 strokes, probably doesn't need to be as aggressive later in the round. But it was that, in anything in life, even if it's an individual athletic, what type of training did he go through in the off season to gain like 25 pounds? To now being able to crush a ball like nearly 350 to 400 yards, right? He's just like the competition. He's definitely probably going to be one of the best golfers, probably in the foreseeable future, just because the way his mindset is and the way he puts science in his team. But I was just thinking in terms of like how I learned, like kind of even later in life, how my drive was right to score the most points. My nephew scored a hat trick in soccer. He scored 3 goals this past week, and I was like celebrating it with him. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. But almost, one of the things that I didn't tell him was, did you get any assists? Did I want to follow up with those questions, because it's more fun to get an assist because you know you contributed to somebody else scoring, right? And so my daughter, this is actually a parallel, but my daughter then, um, she was playing games with my brother, and they were playing this cute little card game, and she lost, and so when she wins, she's ecstatic. It's euphoria. She's, oh my goodness, I won, I won, I won, I won, I won. She lost, and she's, has a grim attitude, and she's crossing her. And I said, Genevieve, I said, listen to this. And I learned it as like taught it, almost instructed as like a learning tool, because let's celebrate in others. You can feel a little bit somber. Don't get me wrong. Like, you want to win, like, go after the win. Don't ever. I don't want that ever to feel like a taboo. Like,
Well,
oh,
nobody ever shows up to lose at anything.
no one ever. But if you do lose, one of the best characteristics you can have is celebrating somebody else's victory, right?
And that can be hard.
And that can be so hard. But if you can celebrate in somebody else's victory, that is that, dude, you are setting yourself up for success, because you're literally surrounding yourself. You're lifting. Rising tides lifts all boats. If I can be present in the time of defeat and still be able to congratulate somebody and lift them up in their victory, how cool is that? And so I'm even trying to teach my daughter that. I'm still trying to teach myself that, because I want to win, right? I have a competitive edge. I have a competitive spirit about me. But at the end of the day, like, I want other people to win. I want it to be something where I'm instilling this in my children, to realize that, yeah, victory is awesome. You want to strive to win, but you should also want other people to win, and you want to strive for their excellence. So it's pretty cool that you're kind of heading that way, because it's all about coaching as a parent. And that really builds up momentum, even in me, but even as a husband too, it's that element of how you can empower and celebrate in those successes, because sometimes we lose that in sight of just the mundaneness of, like, a marriage and every day taking care of kids. But how can you celebrate those victories and empower each other and lift each other up?
Well, and even with people, man, and this one can be real hard. Here's one for people. And I was talking about this on another interview I was on the other day, of celebrating the success for people that maybe things didn't go as planned. Maybe you had a friendship with somebody and it went south, and you went into a hard place because of the way that went. And, you had to recover from a lot of different things. There's a lot of self-healing that comes with relationships and business and all of these things, especially when you're chasing dreams, you're chasing goals, you're chasing whatever it is, numbers in your business, whatever it is. There are going to be people that come and go from your life, and it can be really hard to root those people on later in life when they're happy and they've gotten the things that you've maybe weren't able to bring to the table for them. And so I had a memory show up on Facebook like a week and a half ago of a picture of me with a bunch of people from some old show. It was actually, I just showed it to you before the show today. And some of those people, I'm still friends with them on Facebook and stuff like that, but it's like, there's only so much people can do to support you. And those people were always supportive of me, but later on in life, it's always important to remember that even people who maybe weren't as supportive as they could have been, to be happy for them that they got what they wanted, no matter what, just like you probably will achieve what you wanted, no matter what anyway. And not holding a grudge or being like, F that person, or that person did me wrong, even though it might be true. It can be a real humbling lesson to say, you know what? If you really care about somebody, you really love somebody, you're really a friend, you're like, dude, good for them. Good for Jimmy. He's married now. He's got the kids. He's got the picket fence. His goal was never to go out and travel all over the country and perform and be an entertainer and this and that anyway. But you know what? He supported me anyway.
For sure.
Maybe we got off to a wrong foot somewhere in there in between. I still love that person, so I'm going to root for them anyway.
Yeah.
Work on that one. That one can be hard. I'm just throwing that in there as far as ways to create a positive attitude, even potentially in situations that were draining, that taxed you.
Mhm.
Because then what happens is you release all that tension. That friction is now gone because I'm not giving it any power anymore.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah. I think
that's
there's,
something to think about. And I'm an artist, so my emotions run wild on certain situations more than other people because
Mhm.
of the emotional. I wear my heart on my sleeve and stuff like that in certain situations, which is good, but it can also be taxing. Healing yourself in those ways, saying, hey, good for that person. Man, I'm telling you, there's a lot of power in that.
I think there's two different kind of things that I would take out there of kind of what you're talking about. Usually, when people, because I've gone through this in my mindset. I remember, dude, I was always a pretty good athlete. I'm like, dang, man, I'm pretty good. I'm gonna go somewhere, right? And then the colleges really, the letters didn't come as fast as some of them. I'm like, damn, man. I'm like, why? I must not be as good as I thought I was, and I wasn't. But I'm okay. Like I would say I'm slightly above average in some areas, but I'm definitely not the athlete of what I thought I was, right? Otherwise, I'd be playing at Division I athletic, and I wasn't. And I always remember my buddy, right? My buddy, for some reason, he's an athlete too. He's good at a lot of things, but for some reason, every time things start falling into place for him, and then he didn't get any letters up until the very end of his senior year, and then for some reason, Brian Kelly from Central Michigan gives us a full ride scholarship. His name's Frank Zombie. He's awesome. I love the dude. But I'm like, damn, man. I'm like, I was a pretty good athlete. I had shin splints my senior year. Like things happened to me that I'm like, oh
Right.
man, I could have done this. I could have done that. Then this dude goes to a 4-year college. The CMU had, I think, the best 4 years they've ever had. I really didn't keep up on it all that much, but he had phenomenal career at Central Michigan
You
University.
still friends with this dude?
Oh yeah, Frank's a phenomenal guy. I love Frank.
Right.
I'm just talking from my mindset, right?
Right.
I was like, I had more of like a, probably the jealousy approach, right? I'm like, oh man, I wish I could be in those figures, right? It was the wish, man. I was that friend. I was like, oh, I wish I could like have done that, I wish that was me, instead of celebrating in his success, right? And then he goes on and plays for the Green Bay Packers and wins a championship with Aaron Rodgers in 2011, and has a great career with the Kansas City Chiefs and has since retired.
That's wild.
But he has a phenomenal story, dude. And I'll tell you what, for the first couple of years he was in the league, I'm like, dude, I think I was a little bit better athlete than him. I was a little, I was like telling myself that. And I was like more of I honestly, like whenever I saw Frank, I'm sure like maybe I wasn't drained, maybe I was, I don't know. But I felt like I had a pretty good attitude, but I felt like I probably could be more empowering too to him, be like, dude, dope, you're doing awesome, which I'm sure he got a lot of that anyway, because he was doing dope. But like it was, that, right? I think there was jealousy obviously involved there, and I'm just being vulnerable, right? There's like obviously jealousy, like, oh, I wish I was there, you know what I mean? I wish I was in the league, which, like, yeah, of course, who doesn't? Like, when you kind of have a sport mentality, you're like, oh, I wish I was there. But what you can take out of that is like, dude, like celebrate in those victories for other people, like celebrate in those successes, because I'm sure like it just didn't come easy for him. He worked really, really hard.
That's
right?
the other thing, is that none of this stuff that we talk about is easy in any area, in any category, in any relationship, in any business, all of fitness or any athletics or music or podcasting or growing your brand or any of this stuff, dude. It takes a lot of hard work. And some people are going to catch breaks.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it goes. I've talked about, I used to work with a lot of bands, and sometimes there'd be bands, they played the same 4 notes and the crowd's going crazy. And I'm like, dude, hello. But dude, it was fun. It was catchy. The hook was great. They were fun. They were nice. They took pictures with everybody. So instead of looking at, it's pretty simple, it's pretty basic, it's like, well, they did all these other things right. All these
Yeah.
other recordings were really good. Their tone was really good. He was doing a lot of things right in a lot of different categories that filled in the holes that those teams or those systems needed from someone correctly, that got him all the way through to eventually even winning, huge championships. So while you might, or me might look at something and be like, oh man, what is it? What's the it factor there? College teams or coaches or administrative people can see what they need to fill in a certain hole. Because one guy, like you said, it's a team thing anyway. One guy this isn't Usain Bolt. That's one in a million. But I guarantee you there were days where that guy, I guarantee you that guy struggled to pay for a new pair of shoes at some point in his career.
For sure. And I mean, even like taking that into context, like, the trainers involved, the masseuses involved, like to keep the, muscles elastic. I mean, all these things like are involved for him to be able to run 100-meter in like sub, like it was insane. It was like sub 8, 7. I don't know. I forget.
The dude is ridiculous fast.
He's ridiculous fast, but
he didn't just wake up that fast.
You didn't wake up that fast. You trained, and obviously there was training involved. There was a mindset that was, perpetrated from that you had to deal with every day. You had to go through obstacles, injuries, whatever it might be. And so, but like as you were saying, I mean, these things, right? There's different seasons of people that are going to come through your life, but the mindset of like gratefulness, like true gratefulness. And I go back at a very rudimentary place, right, with my daughter and training her, because I felt like I learned it maybe a little bit later in life, is that you can celebrate in other people's victory. You don't have to go straight to the like, oh, I wish that was me factor. Like if somebody has a big win, celebrate in that big win with them, because when you celebrate in that big win, you can you're constantly creating more and more momentum for yourself, right?
Right. You're telling the universe that is possible for you. You're almost inviting it into your life.
But I wouldn't even go in with the mindset of that. Like you're telling the universe, yes, that is possible for you, because anything is possible. Like I was even talking to my brother. My brother has dyslexia, and my brother's a phenomenal interpersonal person, where he's able to like develop rapport with people very, very, very quickly. And he's able to build relationships in a community very quickly. And as is like kind of my wife, Kelly, she's able to like kind of meet people head on in different ways, in very different ways. But I was just saying like, but my brother struggled with dyslexia, and he also says that like learning words is very difficult for him. And that, he's kind of reached his ceiling with like learning new words and like describe new words or being able to spell new words. And so he doesn't take on it. But I refuse to believe that. I said there's a growth mentality in all of us. Sometimes it's going to take a little bit longer just because of the predisposition that we have. Maybe it's a cognitive learning disability, or it might be some small impairment, but that doesn't mean you can't do it.
It's true. I mean, I've been diagnosed with practically every problem under the planet. I figured it out.
so it might take us a little bit longer, right? I'm not the smartest. I'm definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed, but it might take me a little bit longer. But hey, I can still get there, right? And it's all about the process of the journey, the destination. You know what I mean? It's when the destination isn't the end all be all. It's like being present with that journey. And I'll tell you what, trying to learn Spanish is very, very difficult for me.
How you doing with that, by the way?
Dude, phenomenal. I know over 1,000 words right now. So I have 5,000 to go in order to be fluent. So, but like that's taken me a better part of like 8 months, I would say 7 or 8 months to get to the point where it's where I know about 1,000 words. So, I mean, you figure I'm maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road from being fluent. But at the end of the day, I'm still able to do it. Am I going to say no? It's not for me because it's taking too long. No, like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be very, very difficult. And I know that, but I got to be consistent with that process and that journey. So, but I know like my mornings stay the same. You know what I mean? I have my 3 things that I need to knock out every morning. And if I don't, then I'm one off, and I got to figure that out. Like, I didn't work out this morning. I have to usually get my workout in. I get my, spiritual biblical reading in, and then I go into Spanish, and then I'm usually in my day. But I think you just make a really good, important, the way we kind of handle, victories, and there's going to be people that are going to be draining on you, right? And they don't want to see and celebrate in your victories. And then there's going to be people that will celebrate in your victories and just think that's awesome. And those are the fillers, right? And you want to surround yourself with fillers, but then you also want to be a filler. And so, I mean, that gives me momentum. I mean, that's even why we do this podcast, right? We want to be fillers. We want to be filling up the bucket of other people,
Right.
Reap the harvest. This is, to gain momentum. And I know, specifically one thing that I wanted to note, if there's one, kind of takeaway of this, John Maxwell always says, man, the great John Maxwell always says, you either win or you learn, right? And, so like, even if it's a friendship, if it's a business, if it's anything across the board, you either win or you learn. And you need to learn from it. Otherwise it will be a loss, and it'll set you back, pretty a ways. I never want to lose. I always want to learn. I have a learner's mentality, and I always want to be, grateful for the things, for the people that come into my life. And then honestly though, Pat, I mean, I realize where you're coming from. Like, sometimes you need to dispose of people, right?
Yeah.
They don't need to be in your life.
And sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
And that was almost what I was saying. It's like, sometimes you try so hard chasing something or someone or some result or and it just gets to a point where it just becomes just a loop of toxicity. You can't fix everything.
Yeah.
And then a couple years down the line, you see a picture and you see that person, or you hear about that person, or, tagged in something, and you're like, you know what? It worked out for him anyway. And instead of being bent out of shape about it or annoyed about the past, you're like, dude, good for them. I was not meant to provide that result in that area for that person, because it not only didn't serve them, it didn't serve me. So it spared me further damage, because now I'm doing what I need to do in my life. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it can feel like, oh, the whole world's falling apart. But as it plays out, and that's where I bring in the word God. God has a plan. And when you're called to follow that plan, some things that you think are losses end up being huge wins, because the door that closed there opened up a whole nother pathway for you to pursue. And that was the pathway you were supposed to be on. So while it feels like, oh my God, my whole world's falling apart, this business idea is not working, or this was supposed to be the girl of my dreams, or this band broke up, or I could go through the line of 20 million just from my personal life. And then years down the line, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that this and this and this and this and this and this didn't materialize. It wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to work. And my life is great now. I have everything I ever wanted to do, because that was what the path, that was the pathway that I was already on. I just didn't realize those things were happening so that now could happen. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. It's like a freaking brain warp, but it's so true. Your great thing that you thought was about to happen could just be right around the corner, is really the sum of it all. Mm-hmm. But you got to walk around the corner to get there. Mm-hmm. All this darkness could be engulfing you. There could be super dark times, and you keep going just a little bit, and right around the corner, you're like, oh, there's the bridge. I thought all these things were the bridge, but really I was still in the tunnel. Mm-hmm. Those can be huge revelations, but it only comes from continuing to push. If you don't push forward, you never get to that bridge.
No.
So many times people give up just a little bit too soon, man.
Yeah. And that's the importance of systems, right? Putting the systems in place. I think the importance of really systematized, for me, it's mornings, wherever kind of somebody's habitual traits can be, is important to kind of when your brain operates on all cylinders is what I mean.
Right.
Because there's certain points for every day, for me, it's got to be in the mornings because my nights is when I put my daughters in. I'm wiped. I was actually in a
I go to bed at like 9 o'clock now.
Yeah. So actually, funny enough, that over the past about a week and a half, I've had to cut things off that said, "Hey, I'm sorry, but I can no longer be a part of," because of the fact that they extended into a time period where I needed to sleep. Right. So there was just a few meetings, and there were pro bono philanthropic consulting activities that I was doing, and then there was actually a few projects that I was getting into that I said, "Look, it's just it's a little out of balance, and it's not falling within kind of like how I'm regimenting things and being very systematized." And so I just had to reach out to those individuals and I said, "Hey, look, I'm going to back off. And I just unfortunately can't. When you need me, I'm happy to hop in some areas, but it's got to, you have to know, where things fall in balance too. Balance is a huge thing because it's, when things fall outside, you just have to know when there's a day of reckoning, right? When there's a day of reckoning where you kind of like see things 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, that
Right.
balance is never really, I treat the word a little bit, with, I don't know, balance. It's relative, I guess you could say, because balance, I think in today, like in my world, balance, dude, I'm blowing ahead. I'm trying to trailblaze, right? But at the same time, you also have to know when things are a good direction or things you just need to tighten up the reins a little bit. And
Right.
I found that within the past 2 weeks that I'm like, dude, man, I need to tighten up the reins in this area and this area. So what can I cut off that really doesn't make sense at this time so I can kind of stay focused? And I posted something on our page, focused attention, right? Because I never want things to get off, whether it's a relationship or a business activity that I can't really give focused attention to because I'm trying to, chase rabbits. It's like what John Maxwell says, chase a rabbit. You know what I mean? There's definitely a number of rabbits you could chase.
Yeah, we love rabbits here, folks. So,
yeah. So, I mean, just it's important to kind of like tighten the reins in some areas because there are going to be, in my arena, there's going to be times where you're just going to be trying to juggle 80 different things, but then you're like,
and you can't control everything either. And again, when you're somebody who wants to control an outcome or you're a success-minded person, or you're super driven, that can be a real hard thing to separate. But at some point, you got to pull the emotion out of it, look at the actual data and be like, all right, well, this doesn't add up. I got to let go.
Yeah, it's huge.
Those decisions can be very, very hard, but I'm telling you, years and years and years down the line, what feels like a loss could end up being the gateway to your success
100%.
Because you're hanging on to something that you can't tweak. I don't know what that is for people, but I guarantee you, if you go through what's taking my energy in the day, make a list of those things and start looking at what's zapping your energy. I don't know. It could be Twitter for you. It could be you go on Twitter and you want to argue with Joe Biden or Donald Trump, and you're spending X amount of screen time. We talked about this on Social Dilemma a little bit last time. And now what that's doing is that's translating negative information into all these other areas of their life. Cut it out, man.
That's when you can allocate, right? You can allocate in a time of day where, hey, I'm going to make posts during this time of day. I'm going to just read and filter through, this time of day. So those are huge things. But we've almost been 30 minutes. We're going a little bit longer.
We're just banging through stuff. But, this is how we figure out what works for us, too. So, again, this is a self-discovery channel for us, too. We're not like know-it-all brainiac master coaches or anything. We're figuring it out as we go. But I'm noticing the more I reflect, the more I talk about this stuff, the more of these shows and interviews I produce and host with people, dude, the better I get at figuring out how to win each day.
How to win each day.
That's the name of the game. How do I win today?
How do you win today? Win today.
It's me against me. It's not me against Matt or me against this.
hey, if when you take that reflection period, and if I didn't win today, how did I learn? Right? Because we win or we learn. It's never a lose. Like, how did I learn today? It's the Sarah Blakely quote: "Redefine your definition of failure."
That
Like,
was a
what
good
is that?
episode.
What does that look like to you? So if failure means a loss, then redefine that and start learning from it. So we talked about a bunch today, but I think the two main things that kind of came out that are, the good reflection period as far as re-highlighted is like celebrating other people's victories. I love it. I love just celebrating others' victories when they get some wins. It's not like I wish that was me. Celebrate those with them. So, dude, awesome. Good for you, man. How did you
It
do it? Tell me a little bit
translates.
about it.
Right.
Dig into it. And then, number two, how do you win or you learn? What are those things on a daily basis? I think that was a good ending point, Pat, where either win or you learn every single day. But how do I do that every single day? And redefine that definition of failure. What does that look like? So those are two huge and crucial things that every day you can make one or two decisions that are going to take that step forward. And those can be wins, right? And what are those,
Totally.
2 steps? Maybe it's entering the community, right? Entering the Reap the Harvest community that we're building out right now. That might be one small step.
Because and that was something I talked about too. Man, I wish I would have known the people that I follow now that think the way that have helped me shift my mind over the last 3 or 4 years. Man, I wish I would have had access to that 15 years ago. I would have had a totally different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
All that toxic stuff, like I said, I know now when I look back on that situation how to react. But back when I saw the Facebook memory, dude, I was a train wreck. Because I allowed the emotion to control my mind instead of understanding it's just an emotion and I'm in control of it.
For sure.
It'd be hard when you're a kid. You don't know any better because nobody told you. So it's our job to translate that and get that out because, man, you are in control and you are in control of what you give power to. If you give power to, I'm going to do this, 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 and this because it's way more important than allowing that to control me. Well, dude, you just built 5 wins instead of allowing toxicity to control your mindset. So have a great Momentum Monday. Shoot us a message. Hit the link and join the community. We're going to be launching ASAP and we'll talk to you all soon. Boom.
All right, guys. Peace out.